Oh yeah. There's nobody on Zoom, and we just have got one apology from Councillor Littlewood. Could I have a move for that? Has everybody got their mics on?
Yes.
So walk up. Okay. Very much. Just notifying members that there is media recording today's meeting, as well as our live. We're going to begin with our deputations. First up, we have Dini Mohu. Got it, Dini? Just push the button there on the... Dini, just... Thank you. When you're ready.
A kia tau mai te wairua o ke tupuna I roto I tēnei uri o koutou a tihei o Māori ora. A tēnā rā tātou. Before I begin, I do want to make some acknowledgements. I would like to acknowledge the CEO, Steve Ruru, to you and your staff for putting together such a comprehensive council conduct review report. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank the former chair, Charlotte Littlewood, for her leadership and grace. To all the iwi representatives who had shown strength to ensure accountability was advocated for after the ordeal occurred, I want to acknowledge you, tēnei te mihi, mai oha, kia koutou katoa. To the new chair, Craig Williamson, thank you for your ongoing communication post the incident and for allowing me to speak here today. I also want to thank and acknowledge the following councillors too. Councillor Hughes, thank you for your strength. Thank you for your tenacity in pursuit and holding people to account. Tēnei te mihi ana ki a koe. Councillor Jameson, tēnā koe. I have invited my two boys here so they can meet the man who was so generous and kind with their words post the incident. I just wanted to acknowledge you and thank you for your support. And Councillor Bigham, tēnā koe e te whanaunga. Tēnei te mihi ana ki a koe. Ko tai mai nei ki te whakatū te mana o tēnei kaupapa. Kei te ora tonu mātou, kei te whawhai tonu mātou, mua ke tonu atu. Tēnei te mihi. I would also like to finally thank our whānau and friends who are here to support me today. You have 4 generations of my immediate whānau in support. Who would have thought on that day, December 10, 2024, that I, as a member of the public, would have the opportunity to thank this council for its leadership, for only it to turn in the public fiasco it has become. I came to this council acting in good faith. I asked the Taranaki Regional Council if you would be open to having your draft submission to the Treaty Principles Bill as the foundation for a regional approach, while I advocated to the Stratford District Council, the South Taranaki District Council, and the New Plymouth District Council to come together in a unified Taranaki front. What unfolded that day was absolutely disgusting and shameful. I witnessed some elected members bully their way into getting what they wanted, and now your conduct has been extensively investigated, documented, reviewed, and condemned, and made public for the world to see. Let me be unequivocally clear. What transpired was not just a breach of process, it was a breach of trust and integrity of the fundamental democratic and cultural responsibilities you are obligated to uphold. The report reads like a textbook example of what not to do as an elected member. There was no debate. There was no transparency. There was no respect for tangata whenua. Some councillors even silenced their own elected members and disregarded their legal obligations to Māori. A submission prepared by staff, one that expressed concern over the bill seeking to redefine Te Tiriti o Waitangi without Māori input, was abruptly dismissed without discussion. Let's not mince words here. That was not governance. That was cowardice hiding behind collusion. According to the report, some councillors predetermined the outcome, held informal meetings to undermine the process, and used trickery to suppress debate, all which violated your standing orders, the Local Government Act, the Lagoima Act, and the principles of natural justice. Let us not forget, this happened in response to a bill that would directly impact the rights of Māori. Let me say it again. This happened in response to a bill that would directly impact the rights of Māori. I asked to speak through a public deputation. I was granted 10 minutes. I was not asking for a miracle, only to thank this council. This was not about miscommunication as stated in a recent news article by Councillor Walker. I was met with contempt. I was made to feel less rather than a member of the public. My contribution, and by extension the views of Hapu and Iwi, were treated with absolute disrespect. This was not just poor form, this was systemic exclusion. Let this sink in. Te Tiriti o Waitangi is not an optional courtesy. It is a constitutional cornerstone. This council has statutory obligations to take the treaty into account. And beyond that, it has explicitly enshrined partnering with Māori as a strategic priority in your long-term plan. Your long-term plan. My contribution states clearly that this is not a training issue. It is an absolute failure in governance. When elected members treat treaty matters as too political or not appropriate, you betray your role. The treaty is inherently political, and if you are uncomfortable dealing with it, then you are unfit to sit in your seats. This Council Conduct Review report is damning. And after 8 months of relative silence on the matter, I have come to have my say. If this council has the humility to reflect, the integrity to improve, and the foresight to build trust, then perhaps this moment of reckoning can be the turning point. But make no mistake about who you are dealing with here. Māori aren't going anywhere. All 8 iwi of Taranaki have settled, and we are not taking a back seat to your arrogant, entitled, ignorant rhetoric and incompetence. We are building to become an economic powerhouse in this region's economy, and your continued failure in partnering with your treaty partners will come at a significant cost to our region at your expense. Grow up. Our children are watching. Our mokopuna are watching. Leadership is a privilege that you have been afforded. Do better, Taranaki Regional Council. Taranaki deserves better. Nō reira, toi tū te whenua, toi tū te tangata, toi tū te tiriti o Waitangi, tihei, mauri ora.
Okay, we have one more deputation. Peter, if you...
My son was being polite. Just to be clear, I speak to you today about item 5 on your agenda, the Council Conduct Review Report. I address you today as the complainant, as a father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, all whose generations are here with me today. We are here to witness the outcome of this review. When I watched some members of this council demean my son, our taonga, at your December 10 meeting, I fumed. I was angry because I'd been treated like that by people in similar positions of power and privilege as you. People who think nothing of ignoring the law because they know their privilege affords them immunity. People who have no compunction ripping asunder their stated professional values because their personal values are paper thin. People who spout democracy but connive behind closed doors to suppress it. People like Councillor Cloak, Councillor McIntyre, and Councillor Walker, who used their privileged position to bully the Regional Council Chair and Chief Executive into submission at the December 10 meeting. People who are hypocrites, like Councillor McIntyre, who shut down discussion on 10 December, then on the 22nd of July this year, had the audacity to suggest we shouldn't be stifling conversation. Or people who have no remorse over the relationship damage they have caused, like Councillor Walker, who publicly brushed it off as a miscommunication. It wasn't a miss anything. It was deliberate. Yes, I have seen your types many times before. They are the inheritors of our stolen lands. They are the treaty breakers. They make laws and policies to benefit themselves, and even then, don't uphold them. The review report confirms that on December 10, 2024, this council, you failed to uphold the Local Government Act. You failed to uphold the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act. You failed to comply with Council's Code of Conduct. You failed to comply with principles of natural justice. You failed to have regard for the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi. You failed democratic and transparency principles. You acted contrary to free speech. You acted in a predetermined and prejudicial manner. You were biased and lacked professionalism. In other words, you are shit governors, and if I had my way, should be imprisoned. Yes, I know your type. You speak with forked tongue, and I will never trust you. Whether you adopt this report or not, I will never trust you. And I will never forgive you for the way you treated my son, our taonga. 2 weeks earlier, he did a fabulous job for you, being your MC at your environmental awards. 2 weeks later, you spat on him. Your privileged arrogance and closed minds are so ingrained, you will never change. Furthermore, you have been in charge of our region's environment for the past 30-odd years, and under your watch, it has gotten worse. Under your watch. Our community deserves better. Our community deserves people who are open-minded, environmentally focused, understand their duties and responsibilities, and are willing to have a meaningful and open relationship with hapu, iwi, and mana whenua. My recommendation, withdraw from the ballot. This is part of my deputation. Aramai. Benita might translate for you later. Aramai.
Nara koutou, ko tai mai tēnei rā ki te whakamana I te kōrero I te mana I te kaha o te tiriti o Waitangi tēnā koutou.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for those deputy. The recommendation here, this is item number 4, is that we receive both deputations. Denny and Peter. Denny will move that.
Happy to second.
Susan will second that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. Moving on, council review report, page 5.
I'm happy to move.
Recommendations.
It's accepted in full.
Happy to second.
Okay, thank you very much. Steve, would you like to speak a little bit?
Yeah, look, thank you, Chair. I think, again, the report's reasonably self-explanatory, but just to reiterate the process there in terms of the report finds that the bill was of relevance to the business of council. It is, if it was an issue that was passed into law, it would have had a significant effect on our working relationship with Māori and iwi, and therefore was, in my view, as outlined in the report, a matter that was of relevance to the business of council. And a decision on whether or not the submission should be approved was appropriately a matter for the council as a whole to consider. Now, obviously, again, there were some different views on that expressed during the process, and certainly during the process I met with the elected members that wished to participate in that process. I think one of the big lessons coming out of this is that process issue again, which is highlighted in there, and obviously there are a range of recommendations made, many of which will be matters for the council that comes into place following the election to make decisions on whether they wish to adopt them and how they wish to move forward. And importantly, as part of that process, also review the organisation's strategic priorities and the role that they wish to have in terms of their relationships with Māori and tangata whenua in particular, as a matter, again, that needs to be canvassed widely and debated by the new council so that the organisation at a staffing level has some clarity as to your desires, because at the end of the day, we are here to do as you ask us to do. And that is the role that we will continue to do. We will do what you ask us and instruct us to do via council meetings to do. Nothing more, nothing less. Very happy to take any questions, Mr. Chair.
Before there's any questions or discussion, just on behalf of the council, I'd like to thank you, Steve, and staff who have supported you in conducting this review. I know it hasn't been easy, and I think you've done a fantastic job, and also Peter, Denny, others, and councillors who took part in the interviews for the review. So thank you very much on behalf of all of us. I will open the floor now to any discussion or debate. Bonita.
Tēnā nā tātou. Te tuatahi me tuku mihi atu tēnei uri o Taranaki maunga ki o koutou, kua tai mai tēnei rā. He kaupapa hara, he kaupapa kino, he kaupapa taumaha tēnei ki runga i a tātou, ngai Māori, ngā iwi o Taranaki whānui nō reira. Nui te aroha me te mihi ki o koutou. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I endorse the report to its fullest extent. And I thank Dinny and Peter, my whanaunga, for their kaha and their courage this morning and coming to express to them their lived reality, our lived reality. It's been a difficult few months. It's been difficult for me in particular too, sitting in this seat, halfway between my obligations to council and confidentiality and professionalism that I need to exhibit as a regional councillor, but also feeling the mamai of my whanaunga and what happened in that December meeting. I think this council underestimates the impact of the trampling of our mana on that day. As individuals, as whānau, as hapu, as iwi, and as people across the motu. Our Te Maruata network, our network of Māori elected members across the country, of which Dinny is a key figure and has picked up that role and keeps our whānui together, talks about what happened in this council. And in a rohe, where we were so proud to proclaim that we argue, but we were proud to proclaim that we were the first rohe in the country where councils unanimously voted for, or all councils put in Māori wards, for this to happen in such a short time frame was devastating for us and embarrassing for us. So I really thank Peter and Dinny for their kōrero today, because their words expressed how many of us are feeling. I thank our tangata tiriti who have come today to whakamana the kōrero and to be here with us through this challenge. I would like all councillors to deeply, deeply reflect on the actions, the collusion and the predetermination that led them to the decision of December 10. This was no communication, no miscommunication. This was a deliberate attempt to squash our voices. And I too recognise the, what's the word? It's almost the comedic value of being called for me not to suppress conversations last month, when that's exactly what happened in December 10. So again, I will call on everybody to reflect on their part, their participation, their motivations, their lack of education and understanding, and agree that if you don't think this is something you can do properly, please consider your fitness to sit at this table in the future, because iwi will not put up with this again. I will not put up with this again. Tēnā tātou.
Well done. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Donald?
Yep. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, I've upset some people with my actions, for which I am sorry that they feel aggrieved. The fact that the item was on the agenda was right, and I agree with Steve. There was merit to bring that to council. Part of the reason that Councillor Cloak moved that the presentation of Mr. Morohu in the original form to be presented in front of the agenda item was highlighted at the time by Councillor Cloak, that it was more appropriate to disseminate that straight ahead of it. No one ever said anything at the time that it was the wrong thing to do or anything like that. And if it was a breach of standing orders, well, somebody should have stood up and said it was such. No one ever did. I think for the explanation that Councillor Cloak gave, it was very valid. Also, to that fact, it wasn't as if Mr Morrihue was leaving the meeting until the agenda had been discussed, so he wasn't being put out by that delay. I have yet to see any reference to standing orders that have been breached, and like I say, if they were, they weren't highlighted at the time, and I haven't seen them highlighted since. And with my understanding of meeting procedures, and I've had extensive undertakings in that regard, the procedures we used on that day were accurate and were appropriate, and they were democratic because they were all voted upon in an open meeting with everyone having that opportunity. Morally, we may have been better to have discussed the item, and that is probably something we can reflect on in future. But I still stand by the decision we made at the time. Mr Morrihue came with the thought that we are going to make this submission when we all know that in democracy nothing should be assumed, as if we're worried about a council collaborating outside of the meeting, then maybe we should be questioning the election of chairman, etc., because a fair bit of collaboration takes place at that time as well.
I didn't assume. I came here to ask.
If we could please be quiet. Continue.
There's as for the chairman's assertion that the mayor that we have put back iwi relations, from my point of view, there was never a great reference to years. We've been waiting 6 years for the iwi chairs to approve the Waitara River Committee from this council, and we've asked many times, and we're still awaiting that verdict. So I think there's still there hasn't been a good relationship in the first instance. And as was stated by the Prime Minister prior to this, the bill was never going to pass anyway. So I think the submission we didn't put in and we're contemplating putting in as the move we made was validated that it wasn't a due submission. So you should have debated it.
Excuse me, Danny, if we could keep it quiet, please.
And as I pointed out to the Chief Executive in the interviews, in the previous government's realm, we did a lot of submissions on bills that they'd never listened to, and when the bills were formulated and the information came back, all the things that we'd said would happen, and we had to take the consequences of it. So, you know, there needs to be a lot of thought into some of these things as well. Thank you.
Am I able to respond?
Absolutely.
I find it extraordinary that we're sitting here today trying to justify what wasn't, in fact, and never could be justified. You set out to exclude myself and Councillor Bingham from being involved in any of this. That was the plan, and that was a plan that was executed. You undermined the integrity of this organisation by behaving as you did, and those of you who led the collusion. I don't think I've ever been in a situation where there has been more opacity and no transparency. What did you have to fear from us? What do you think we might have said that might have caused you to reconsider? Could you not at least pay us the courtesy of hearing from us? But your actions that day denied us that opportunity, and I find it incredibly disappointing that here we are with a very carefully crafted report, still hearing you justify the way that meeting was conducted. There was no justification for it. There is no justification for it. You have done great damage.
Could I just clarify, Mr Chairman, I did apologise that we should have had that discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Anybody else? Being none, Councillor Hughes, I appreciate what you've just said, and I agree with you. On behalf of this council, I wholeheartedly endorse all of the recommendations in the conduct review that are put forward, that are in front of you today. Obviously, with the new council in October, being sworn in October, most of what is within is going to pertain to the new council. I think there's been huge lessons learned for everybody sitting around here, for everybody, others who will be sitting around here in the future, for staff, for the council as a whole. I think all we can do now is move forward, and I hope that the future is a lot brighter than this year has been. It's been a dark time for this council. It has been a regrettable time for this council. And I think it's just time to accept what happened, accept that the actions undertaken by members of this council were not appreciated, were not conducive to building strong relationships and moving forward, and it is time that we moved on. We have a mover and a seconder for all of the recommendations.
I'll move.
We already have a mover and a seconder.
I thought you were asking.
No.
No, we have a mover and a seconder for all of the recommendations.
Oh, sorry,
And
I missed
Susan, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
There is one.
Just to clarify with Councillor McIntyre wishes to have that
Thank you.
recorded, Chair.
Would you like that recorded?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bonnie?
Can I ask just further to that then, Mr Chair, when will the Moeohu whānau receive that apology, and can we please be let know when that will be happening so that those of us who want to be a part of that can also be a part of it? Will there be a formal apology, or how is that recommendation
Yes,
going to be laid out?
there will be a formal written apology, and that is going to go
Yep.
very soon.
Very soon we'll organise how that happens.
And also we're formally apologising to our 6 iwi reps who also wrote us a letter following the event collectively.
And which is a letter drafted on that, and also I've got to just tidy up one to iwi o Taranaki, Chair. All right.
Can I just
So we
suggest
have-
that we're in close liaison with Dinny and his whānau so that it's received in the appropriate manner, in a way that
Both
the
the
money.
chair and the CEO have been in constant.
Ka pai, ka pai.
But thank you.
Tēnā
Thank you,
koutou.
thank you very much. Okay. Item number 6, confirmation of the ordinary minutes on 24th of June.
I'll move, Chair.
Recommendations are on page 50.
I'll move.
Next Tom, second up.
I'll second.
Alan was not in first. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, there are none. I take it they are true and correct. Item number 7, Ops and Reg meeting, page 59. Susan?
It's a true and correct record in my view, and I'm happy to move that they be accepted as such.
I'll
Thank you
I'll
very much.
second that.
Donald will second it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. Item number 8, policy and planning.
Happy to move those as a true and correct record,
Thank you, Benita.
Mr Chair.
Alan, thank you. No corrections. All those in favour, please. Neil, you have something?
Can I ask a question? Obviously, we've moved along a little further for the freshwater side of things. Is there anything further, maybe Mr McClay would know about that? I think the government was moving to make some more regulations to prevent councils from doing stuff, what have you. Would you?
So, yeah, it's proposed there'll be an amendment to the current RMA amendment bill when it comes back to Parliament. I'm not sure, Finbar, whether you know exactly. I don't think it's happened yet. It's next week or the week after. The amendment will be formally moved to the RMA to exclude the freshwater NPS from implementation the October 27, December 27, sorry. They have obviously consultation on the well, it's not the NPS, but the directional document, which the second week went through this Policy and Planning Committee, and we are expecting there'll be a public consultation process around the draft NPS as the next step. And we are, at a staff level, as we report, obviously reflecting on just where that whole process and timing leaves us. But again, much of the work will be of relevance to, the issues, as I've said constantly, the issues that what's practical to implement in Taranaki doesn't change because government legislation changes. So there's a lot of work there that's very relevant for us to continue to think about. But we're going to do some work at a staff level on working out our options for how we move forward in light of the changing national landscape.
It's just that having talked to some councils from other places, some of them have more or less been stopped in doing stuff. That's not affected by this change?
That's what I asked you to outline at the beginning of the meeting, the government's announcements about stopping plans.
Oh, yeah. So they have announced that all plan changes are to be stopped. As you know, we have one going on the coastal plan change that has been previously approved by council that will also be affected by this. We are continuing to work through the implications of that plan change, and indeed we were organising a hui with iwi po Taiho staff to work through some practical issues, examples relating to what the current planning provisions might affect, and that will help inform whether we still need a plan change to do things like enabling the port to continue to dredge, which is obviously a critical economic development issue for this region in particular if the port can't operate. As well as for this organisation, given the importance of its dividends to us as a revenue stream. So we are continuing practical work on that, and the government have signalled there will be provisions that allows the minister to approve variations to plans that might be needed in an interim period pre the new planning regime under the new legislation. Remember, we're expecting to see the new draft legislation this side of Christmas being introduced to Parliament, which will give us a good, it's legislation to go through a public consultation process. And look, we may end up with tight submission timeframes again around that process, given their desire to get it through by 30 June. I suspect it'll be a piece of Christmas work we're going to have to do again, and under compressed timeframes. But we'll deal with that, and with a new council, so we'll deal with that as best we can. But so there's that issue, which is a very real practical issue for us in the short term. The bigger broad issue is, as we know, we've got a regional freshwater plan that's now 24 odd years old. Some provisions that really do need to be updated to better recognise Taranaki in 2025 moving forward, which is why we have been keen to keep momentum going on working out what's actually practical on the ground in Taranaki, and then, yes, we can mould that to reflect new planning structures and or new direction that might come down via a new national policy statement. And there are some, but when you look at that consultation document, there was nothing in there that particularly concerned us. In fact, most of it was stuff that, in principle level, we support, and is very consistent with some information that we presented to this council and our local MPs about 18 months ago when they were first elected. Here are the sorts of changes we would like to see implemented to make it much more practical and pragmatic for Taranaki. A number of those things were very consistent with the direction in this national consultation document. So we have reasonable hope that if that flows into the new national policy statement, is the sorts of changes that will just support the journey we've been through in the last 18 months and the way we're currently thinking about it. But obviously we need to wait for the government to do its piece of work and then for Parliament to finalise its legislative process, which, if they stick to the time frame, we could well be writing submissions this side of Christmas, and new law passed by, I think, June next year is the date they've set for that to happen. So we'll have a very good level of clarity on what the new planning framework looks like.
I don't want to extend this discussion, but there's also this comments about who does consents and approvals of consents and so forth in the future too.
But again, the current government policy is there is no plan for local government reform. Cabinet has asked for a paper by July on implications of the new RMA legislation on the structure of local government. So presumably Cabinet has already considered that, and there'll be some public communication on it. But the Minister as recently as the last few weeks has been confirming this government has no plans for reforming local government in the current triennium. New Zealand First has certainly been signalling they're taking remits to their conference to propose local government reform. We'll obviously see where the other parties lie once their policy manifestos and policy processes work their way through and become public. I think we're almost, you probably know better than I, but we're almost in conference season at the moment. Now, the extent to which those conferences and processes will happen in public, and again, I understand there's a bit of change in approach with some parties, but obviously direction will emerge in the near future, hopefully, about their plans for local government reform as well, albeit next triennium, so that's, at least 12 months away anyway before that. We have clarity on the government that's in place and what their plans are around local government reform. And in the meantime, we have statutory roles to fulfil.
Thank you, Steve. Is that clear for everybody?
Yes. Will that have any budgetary implications, not having to do some of that work, or probably positive ones rather than negative ones? But
I wouldn't dismiss that there will also be negative ones. We are operating, particularly for some of our landowners out there. There are a number of areas where our plan reflects its age and is not a plan that reflects what we would want to have in place in terms of even permitting activities in 2025. So I would not dismiss that overall there will be savings out of further ongoing delay. Indeed, there could well be some unforeseen costs, given we are dealing with a very historical planning document that doesn't reflect requirements today. So, yes, there are likely to be some short-term savings for the organisations from not having, because we were anticipating having to go through a notification process and hearings panel and obviously potential court appeals, which will get pushed out, obviously, by a couple of years. But I wouldn't make the assumption that there'll be savings for everybody in the system as a whole. I think that's a very brave assumption to make.
Thank you. If anyone has any further questions, just maybe take them offline. I'll ask the officers directly. We'll put them over a second. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. Executive Audit and Risk Committee minutes.
I move that they're correct, Chair, and just note that the accommodation building is now out of the ground. I noticed this morning. It's good to see, so that's pretty positive. We'll actually see some growth. And as someone mentioned this morning, it'd be good to have our parks back shortly.
Oh, yeah.
So, but anyway, it's good to see that that's, excuse me, going ahead. And that's all the comments I've got to make. So I'll move it. Can I make one? There was also in here the flood control scheme damage comments that were made. And I note that, again, I've just been to the National Park Conference and the Minister was talking about being asked and considered the possibility of allowing farmers to actually extract shingle from rivers again in the same way. So this sort of, there's a concern out there, not only with, we've got obviously things like this, but there are other places in the country where they feel this would be a way of actually cutting costs by allowing these things to be done and not done under the rules as they are. About that one?
Yeah, certainly shingle extraction is a huge issue in Southlands, which obviously I'm aware of the particular context down there. where the regional council were seeking a region-wide consent enabling shingle extraction from rivers. I'm not up on why, but I just following the media, I see that has hit some challenges with getting through the process and hasn't, what was proposed when I was there, which is what, nearly 5 years ago now, hasn't been realised. I'm not sure why, but it is certainly continues to be an issue. Dan would be better able to comment whether shingle and gravel extraction is an issue in our rivers.
Through you, Chair, generally not an issue. Most of our rivers are stable grading. We do monitor river levels of schemes to determine whether there's a gravel build-up or not. And our schemes at the moment are showing that there is not. And if there is, then we will address it at the time based on the science that we have available to us.
Thank you. A seconder, please. Thanks, Neil. All those in favour, please, no. The Minneapolis Relationship Agreement. Endorsement, page 72.
Through you, Chair. This is you'll recall that we brought a draft agreement before you at the last Ordinary Council meeting. Subsequently, we've heard from both Ruruapehu and Horizons that they are comfortable with the agreement, so we are now seeking your formal endorsement of the draft relationship agreement so we can proceed to signing it and then implementing it. I will just draw your attention from that draft that you saw last time. There has been one minor change, and that's was at the suggestion of Ruruapehu, including a provision that just acknowledges and specifying that the parties to the agreement acknowledge and respect all other iwi and hapu within the area covered by this agreement, and acknowledging that councils have separate obligations to those iwi, which we thought was quite a nice addition, just to make that very clear. But that's it. I won't speak anymore. I'll take it as read. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, any questions?
I think it's actually a very good agreement, actually, and I think that reflections on page 82, I think it is, relation principles under C, jointly committing. There's some good outcomes here, and I think that's the way to move forward. And let's hope that we can actually work with them. I, for one, have been trying to get Manawapoto on our State Highway 3 working party, so I just hope that this might open the door a little bit more for that as well, because I can see some good work coming out of that if we can get those relationships strengthened a little bit more. So I think well done. It's a good agreement, and just hope the other councils also support it in the way that we hopefully will. So I'll move, Chair.
Oh, perfect.
I'll second it.
Do you need to speak, Donna?
No, just a second.
I just wanted to comment that I really like the once a year. I just said to Steve before, the once a year meeting between elected officials and leaders of Minneapolis. I like that idea.
All those in favour, please. Meeting dates, page 97.
Yeah, I'll move, Chair.
I'll second those. All those in favour, please. Against? There are none. Public excluded. I will move the recommendations on page 98 that we move into public excluded. Thank you, Neil. Also, those in favour, please.
All right.
And we'll just wait a second for the live stream. All those people